Ethan Kane, a seasoned engineer at Outpost 9, had seen his share of strange things on the planet of Targo. But nothing had prepared him for the signal he picked up on his wrist console late that evening. The message was weak, barely audible, but it was clear enough to send a chill down his spine. "Help. Please," the voice whispered, trembling with fear. Ethan paused in his tracks. His eyes scanned the horizon. The sun had set hours ago, and the mining tunnels below were no place to wander after dark. Dangerous, abandoned, and riddled with old mining equipment. No one had entered those tunnels in years. He hesitated. The rational part of him told him to ignore it. But something in the voice called to him. It wasn't just fear. There was something else. Something desperate. With a deep breath, FN toggled the console and started the trek towards the source of the signal. The terrain was rough. His boots kicked up dust with every step, and the air was thick with the strange humidity of the planet. The only sound was his own breathing and the distant hum of the station dot as he approached the entrance to the mining tunnels. His heart raced. The opening was barely visible in the fading light. He reached for his flashlight, flicking it on and illuminating the darkness ahead. There was something about the silence that unsettled him. Something didn't feel right. Then he heard it again. A faint sound, almost like a whisper on the wind. Help! It was coming from deeper in the tunnel. Ethan didn't think twice. He stepped forward, his boots echoing in the tunnel, the flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The air grew cooler as he descended further into the mines. The walls were lined with old mining equipment, rusted and forgotten. He pushed past a broken-down conveyor belt, the dim light from his flashlight flickering over abandoned tools. Then, in the distance, he saw it. A small figure. A girl, sitting alone on the cold floor, her back pressed against the tunnel's walls. Her skin was an unnatural shade of green, glowing softly in the low light, and her wide eyes stared up at him in fear. Ethan stopped in his tracks. The girl was no more than 12, with delicate features that seemed almost human, except for her green skin and the strange glow about her. She was dressed in tattered clothing, the fabric barely clinging to her small frame. She flinched when she saw him, her body shaking. Hey, it's okay," Ethan said softly, kneeling in front of her. His voice was gentle, trying to calm her. The girl's breath hitched, her eyes darting around as if expecting something. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Please, they're coming." Before Ethan could ask her who they were, the ground beneath them trembled. A loud noise echoed from deeper within the tunnels, a rumbling sound that made the walls shake. The girl's eyes widened in panic. "They're here," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Without warning, she grabbed Ethan's arm with a surprising strength and pulled him toward her. "You have to get me out of here, now." Ethan didn't waste a second. He scooped the girl up in his arms, her body small and fragile, and turned to run. The tunnel stretched out before him, darkness closing in from all sides. He sprinted, his heartbeat pounding in his chest as the rumbling grew louder. Behind him, the sounds of footsteps, not human, not animal, but something else entirely, grew closer. The girl gasped in terror. "They'll kill you. They'll take me back." Ethan didn't stop. He could feel the fear radiating off the girl, her tiny body trembling in his arms. But he wasn't about to let anything happen to her. His mind raced as he thought of the quickest way to get back to the station. The tunnel ahead suddenly opened up into a larger chamber, and for a moment, the rumbling stopped. Ethan dared a quick glance over his shoulder. There was nothing in sight, but he didn't dare slow down. He needed to get to the surface. As he neared the tunnel's exit, the girl clung to him tighter. Her nails dug into his shirt, and her breathing was shallow, almost frantic. Ethan reached the mouth of the tunnel just as he heard a horrifying screech. The sound was deafening, unnatural, and sent a chill through his spine. He turned to see what had followed them, but there was nothing. Just the dark, empty tunnel. He didn't wait to figure out what that noise meant. He ran toward the entrance of the station, where the familiar lights were blinking in the distance. The sound of the screeching continued to echo through the tunnel, growing fainter, but the sense of danger lingered. "Almost there," he muttered to the girl, but she didn't answer. Her face was pale, her eyes closed tightly. When they finally reached the station, Ethan didn't even hesitate. He ran straight for the med bay, the doors sliding open as he rushed inside. His breath came in ragged gasps as he set the girl down on the nearest table. He quickly checked her for injuries. She had no visible wounds, but her body was shaking uncontrollably. "She's not from around here," he muttered to himself, his mind racing as he worked to stabilize her. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. He had no idea who or what was chasing her, or why. All he knew was that he couldn't let anyone, or anything, take her again. But what Ethan didn't realize yet was that the girl was far from alone. The danger wasn't just following them, it was already here. The med bay was quiet. The only sound the soft hum of machinery and the rhythm of Ethan's breathing. The girl, still trembling in his arms, seemed to be losing consciousness, her small body limp with exhaustion. As Ethan gently laid her down on the sterile table, he couldn't shake the strange feeling that had settled deep in his gut. Something was terribly off. His hands moved quickly, preparing the medical equipment to scan her for any injuries. But the moment the door to the med bay slid open, he froze. 3 figures stepped into the room, their footsteps measured, deliberate, like they already owned the space. The first one was tall, with piercing eyes that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. Her long silver hair cascaded down her back, and her movements were smooth, almost too fluid. She didn't speak, but the way she moved, the confident sway of her hips, sent a shiver down Ethan's spine. The second figure was more intimidating. Dark hair, sharp features, and a presence that made the air itself feel heavy. She was shorter than the first, but just as commanding. Her dark eyes scanned Ethan without so much as a blink. The third figure was the most unusual. She was younger. No older than Ethan's own sister, but there was something unearthly about her. Her dark hair framed her face in sharp angles, and her skin, like the others, was a vibrant shade of green. But there was an innocence in her expression that contrasted with the cold, calculating look in the other's eyes. Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came out. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The girl on the table stirred slightly, but only enough to glance at the newcomers. The silver-haired woman was the first to speak. "You found her," she said softly, her voice almost melodic. But there was no warmth in it, no gratitude, only a cold certainty. I don't understand," Ethan stammered, looking between the women. "Who are you? What do you want?" "With her?" The younger girl on the table looked up at him, her eyes wide with fear. They're my sisters. They'll never let me go." Ethan's mind whirled. Sisters? But they weren't human. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. These women, they weren't just strange travelers, they were something far more dangerous. The second woman stepped forward, her gaze never leaving Ethan. "You've interfered," she said in a voice as sharp as a blade. "And now you will pay the price for your kindness." He took a step back, instinctively, raising his hands. "I don't want any trouble. I just helped her." The first woman, the silver-haired one, finally spoke again. Her voice was calm, measured, but her eyes burned with an intensity that made Ethan's heart race. "In our culture, you don't just help someone, you claim them. And in return, you belong to us." Ethan blinked, confused. "Belong? What are you talking about?" The younger girl spoke again, but this time her voice was quiet, almost mournful. "They take what they want. They always have." She looked at Ethan, her eyes pleading for him to understand. "You were never meant to save me. You were meant to be a part of their game." Before Ethan could respond, the tallest woman moved to the table, standing beside him. Her presence was overpowering, like gravity itself was pulling him toward her. She leaned down, her lips brushing the girl's forehead, and whispered something in an alien language. The girl's eyes fluttered closed. Ethan felt his stomach tighten. He wanted to help, but the situation was spiraling out of control faster than he could process. "Why did you come here?" Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What do you want from me?" The silver-haired woman straightened, looking down at him as if he were nothing more than an insect. "You're not the one asking questions here," she said coldly. "You've already given us what we wanted. Now you will give us something more." Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. What had he gotten himself into? The younger girl's voice broke the silence. "Please, don't." But it was too late. She had already been marked, and the others were already making their next move. The air in the medbay was thick with unspoken tension. Ethan stood motionless, trying to make sense of the situation. The three alien women, or rather, the sisters, towered over him, their gazes locked on him as if sizing him up, studying his every move. Lyra, the young girl he had rescued, was still lying on the medical table, her body relaxed but her eyes darting between Ethan and the three women. She appeared to be struggling to stay awake, her face pale as if the weight of their presence drained her. Ethan swallowed hard. He had never been a part of something so wrong. Everything he knew about kindness, help, and honor felt meaningless. Here, the tall, silver-haired woman was the first to speak again, her voice smooth, almost sweet, but there was no mistaking the edge beneath her words. "You've done something no human should have done. You've taken something that doesn't belong to you." Ethan's brow furrowed. "I saved her," he said, his voice trembling with both confusion and frustration. "That's all I did. I didn't ask for any of this." The second sister, the one with the dark hair and cold, calculating eyes, took a step closer, her heels clicking on the metal floor like a warning. "That's the mistake every human makes." She tilted her head, her lips curving into a cruel smile. "You think you're in control. You think saving someone means they're forever indebted to you. But where we come from, we take what we want, and we claim what we deserve." Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. This wasn't a rescue. This was something else. A game, a trap. He had been played from the beginning. Lyra let out a soft gasp, and for the first time, her voice trembled with a hint of fear. "Ethan, they're not like us." The silver-haired sister stepped forward and interrupted her, her eyes glowing faintly in the low light. "Enough, Lyra." Her voice was firm, cutting through the air like a blade. "You don't speak for us. You don't tell him our rules." Ethan turned his gaze back to Lyra, his mind spinning with questions. What was happening here? Who were these women? And why did Lyra seem so terrified of them? Without giving him a chance to respond, the youngest sister, the one who had remained quiet until now, spoke up. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of something heavy. "You don't understand. They've been watching you, all of you. You humans think you control everything, but you've just stepped into a game you can't win." Her words hung in the air, leaving Ethan with more questions than answers. Watching? Who? How? The eldest sister, the one with the silver hair, gave him a look of amusement, as if she could see right through him. "You saved her, yes, but in doing so, you've made yourself ours. We take what we want, human, and now we want you." Ethan shook his head, stepping back instinctively. "I don't belong to anyone," he said, his voice steady despite the confusion and fear swirling inside him. "I saved her, and I'm not going to let you just take her away." The silver-haired sister smiled again, a predator's grin. "That's where you're wrong, Ethan Kane. You already belong to us. You just don't know it yet." Before he could respond, the air around them seemed to thicken, a strange, almost magnetic pull drawing him toward them. The three sisters stepped closer, their eyes never leaving him. Lyra's voice cracked, her words barely audible. "Please, don't fight them. You can't win." Ethan's gaze flickered between Lyra and the three women. He wanted to protect her, but he knew now that he wasn't just facing a group of hostile aliens. He was facing something much darker. Something ancient. The tall sister stepped forward, her hands resting on the edge of the table where Lyra lay. "The rules are simple. You either accept your place among us, or you suffer the consequences." The younger sister, who had been so quiet, now seemed to step into the light, her gaze shifting from Ethan to Lyra. There was a flicker of something softer in her eyes, something resembling regret. But it vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Ethan's pulse raced. There had to be a way out of this. But for the first time in his life, he realized that he might not be in control at all. Ethan could feel the weight of their presence bearing down on him. The three women stood around him like predators circling their prey, each one radiating an aura of power he couldn't begin to comprehend. His mind was racing, trying to make sense of it all, but the fear clawing at him wouldn't let him think. Clearly, Lyra lay still on the medical table, her breathing shallow, as if every breath she took was one step closer to the abyss. The sisters weren't just her family, they were something far more dangerous. And Ethan had just unknowingly stepped into a world he didn't belong in. The eldest sister, the silver-haired one, leaned forward, her eyes never leaving Ethan. Her voice was calm, almost soothing, but the underlying menace was impossible to ignore. "You think you have a choice here, don't you? You think you can walk away from us, from what's been set in motion?" Ethan opened his mouth to speak, but the words stuck in his throat. He had no idea how to fight back. He wasn't a warrior, just a simple engineer. He couldn't defeat these women. But something inside him refused to back down. "I don't want any part of your game," he said, his voice trembling but determined. "I saved her. That's all. I'm not some prize." The second sister, the one with the dark, cold eyes, stepped forward, her lips curling into a slow smile. "You already are, Ethan. You don't get to decide that. You've been marked. By us." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. "Marked?" he repeated, his voice barely a whisper. The third sister, the youngest one, remained silent, but there was a certain sadness in her eyes that made Ethan's stomach turn. She didn't seem like the others. There was something about her that felt different, vulnerable even, but he couldn't trust it. He had no idea what game they were playing. The silver-haired sister spoke again, her tone still unnervingly calm. "In our world, once you save one of us, you belong to us. Not just in the way you think. No, your fate is tied to ours now. We claim what we desire, and Ethan, we desire you." A cold chill ran down Ethan's spine. It wasn't just about the girl anymore. It was about him. He had unknowingly stepped into something far darker than he could have ever imagined. His mind raced, scrambling for any escape, any way out. "Look, I don't want to fight you," he said, desperation creeping into his voice. "Just let her go. She doesn't belong to you." The silver-haired sister's smile faded, replaced by an icy stare that seemed to pierce straight through him. "It's too late for that. You can't undo what's been done. You've already claimed her by saving her. Now you'll face the consequences." Ethan felt the walls of the medbay closing in on him, the air thick with an invisible pressure. His chest tightened, his heart pounding so loudly in his ears that it drowned out the sound of the sisters' footsteps as they circled him. He could feel the weight of their gazes on him, each one judging him, sizing him up. They were waiting for him to react, to make a move. But he didn't know what to do. His mind raced, but the options were slim. A sudden sharp gasp from Lyra broke the tense silence. She stirred on the medical table, her eyes flicking open, but she wasn't looking at Ethan. She was looking past him, towards the sisters. And for the first time, a flicker of defiance crossed her face. "Please," she whispered, her voice strained. "Don't let them control you." You don't understand. They'll never stop. Once you're claimed, there's no going back. Ethan turned to her, his heart aching. He had no idea what to do. The sisters were relentless, their power overwhelming. But he couldn't just walk away. Not after everything that had happened. The silver-haired sister stepped closer, her fingers trailing lightly across the edge of the medical table. You can't protect her. She belongs to us, and now you do too. You're in this as deep as we are. Ethan swallowed hard, the weight of their words sinking in. There was no easy way out. His choices were slipping away like sand through his fingers. But he couldn't just give up. He wouldn't, not without a fight. Why? He asked, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and anger. Why me? What do you want with me? The eldest sister's smile returned. But this time it was cruel, knowing. Because, Ethan, humans think they control everything. But we've been watching you, watching all of you. And we've decided. You're ours now. The lights in the med bay flickered as the silence stretched on, thick with unspoken tension. Ethan's pulse raced in his ears, drowning out the faint hum of the station systems. The sisters stood like statues around him, their eyes locked on him, waiting for him to understand, to accept the inevitable. But no matter how hard he tried to comprehend what was happening, it felt like he was trapped in a nightmare that had no end. Ethan glanced at Lyra, still lying motionless on the table, her eyes dull with exhaustion. She hadn't said much since the sisters had entered, but the fear in her eyes spoke volumes. She was terrified, and whatever these women were, whatever they had planned, they would stop at nothing to get what they wanted. The silver-haired sister broke the silence, her voice low and calm. You should know, Ethan, this isn't just about Lyra, it's about you and what you represent. Ethan frowned, confused. What are you talking about? I didn't ask for this. I saved her, that's all. The second sister, the one with the piercing dark eyes, smirked. You think you saved her? Her voice was sharp, mocking. You didn't save anyone. You just became part of the game. We didn't need her to be rescued. We needed you to do exactly what you did. Ethan's mind spun. He couldn't wrap his head around it. Why would they want him? What kind of twisted game was this? Lyra stirred again, her breath coming in shallow gasps. You don't understand, you never will. Her voice was weak, but the urgency in it was undeniable. They've been watching you. They've been watching all of you. Ethan turned to her, his heart pounding. What are you talking about? Who's been watching? The silver-haired sister smiled, as if this moment had been coming for a long time. The moment you entered the tunnels and rescued her, you became part of something bigger. The sisters. We have been observing humans for centuries, learning everything we can about you, your weaknesses, your desires. And you, Ethan, are exactly what we need. Ethan took a step back, his legs shaking. No, I didn't sign up for this. The youngest sister, the one who had been mostly silent, finally spoke. Her voice was almost a whisper, but there was a strange sadness in it. You don't get to choose. This has been set in motion long before you even knew we existed. The rescue, the claim, it was all part of our plan. Ethan's head was spinning. Every word they said felt like a blow to the chest. He hadn't just been caught in a struggle between two factions. He had been a pawn in a game that was far older and far darker than he could have imagined. What do you want from me? Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper, fear gripping his chest. The silver-haired sister's smile grew wider. It's not about what we want from you. It's about what you are going to do for us. We need you to become one of us, Ethan. To join us, to understand the power we wield. You can't fight it. You've already begun the process by saving Lyra. You're already marked. You're ours. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. He felt trapped. There was no escape. Number. Easy answer. He had tried to be a hero, to do what was right. But now, all he could see was a future he hadn't chosen, one where he was nothing more than a tool in their hands, but there was a flicker of resistance deep inside him. He had no idea how he could fight back, but something told him that. He couldn't just give up. Not without knowing what was at stake. Not without understanding exactly what they were doing to him. The silver-haired sister took a step closer, her presence overwhelming. You don't have to understand now. You'll learn, in time. We've given you a gift, Ethan, a chance to be something more than a human. A chance to join us in our mission. Ethan shook his head. I don't want any part of your mission. I don't want to be like you. The second sister stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. That's your choice. Then, but know this, you can never go back. Once you've crossed this line, there's no return. You can fight, you can resist, but the moment you stepped into our world, you became part of it. There's no running away. Ethan looked at the youngest sister, who now stood a little farther back from the others. There was something about her that made him pause, a subtle flicker of regret in her gaze, but it was gone before he could fully understand it. She looked away quickly, her expression unreadable as the words of the silver-haired sister echoed in his mind. A new, unsettling realization hit Ethan. He wasn't just facing an alien invasion, or some rogue species bent on taking over. No. This was something more personal. These sisters weren't just trying to control him, they were trying to change him. To make him one of them. And no matter how hard he fought, there was no telling what they would do to him, or to the people he cared about, if he didn't comply. Ethan felt the weight of their words like chains, heavy and inescapable. The med bay around him seemed to close in, the walls narrowing as the sisters' presence filled the room, suffocating him with their power. Every step, every word they spoke, seemed to drive home the truth he had been denying. There was no way out of this. The youngest sister, the one who had seemed so different from the others, now watched him with a mixture of pity and something darker. Her eyes held a storm of emotions, but she said nothing. Instead, it was the silver-haired sister, the one who seemed to command everything in her presence, who broke the silence. You've had your chance to understand, she said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Now it's time to choose. Ethan blinked, his mind struggling to process what she meant. Choose? What choice do I have? You're saying I'm already yours. The silver-haired sister stepped closer, her heels clicking sharply on the floor, every movement deliberate. Exactly, but there's always a choice. A final choice, Ethan. His heart pounded as his eyes darted to the other two sisters, watching him with unwavering focus. Lyra lay still on the medical table, her face pale but her eyes wide, filled with a helplessness he hadn't seen before. For the first time, it seemed like she wasn't just afraid for herself. She was afraid for him too. You don't understand, do you? The silver-haired sister continued, her voice low but clear. You've been marked, yes. You've crossed the line. But that doesn't mean we're finished with you. No, it's not just about being claimed. We need to know how far you're willing to go. Ethan's breath caught in his chest. His mind was racing, but the fear made it hard to think straight. He had no idea what she was talking about, but he could sense the weight of her words. Something far worse was coming. How far I'm willing to go, he repeated, trying to steady himself. What does that even mean? What do you want from me? The second sister, the one with dark eyes that pierced through him like a predator sizing up its prey, took a step forward. You think you can walk away from this, Ethan? You think that if you just keep resisting, things will go back to normal. But we're beyond that. You've crossed into our world now, and there's no going back. She circled him slowly, her voice almost hypnotic. You're in the middle of our game. And there are rules, Ethan. You can either accept your place here by our side, or you can refuse and face the consequences. His mind was a blur. He had no idea what kind of consequences they were talking about. But the fear in Lyra's Eyes told him everything he needed to know. These women weren't just threats. They were dangerous, powerful beyond anything he could have ever imagined. The silver-haired sister placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch cold and unyielding. You have two choices, Ethan. You can embrace what we offer. You can become one of us, a part of our family, our purpose. You'll be more than human. You'll have powers, abilities beyond anything your kind could ever dream of. You'll live not just for yourself, but for a cause. Ethan stared at her, his heart racing. And if I refuse? The woman's smile was almost predatory. If you refuse, you'll become a liability, a threat to us. And trust me, Ethan, we have no use for threats. The room seemed to freeze, the air thick with tension. Ethan's pulse hammered in his ears. He wasn't just being asked to join them. They were offering him something he couldn't even begin to comprehend. Power, control, immortality. Everything a human could dream of, but at what cost? Lyra's voice cracked, weak but urgent. Please, Ethan, don't. You don't know what they're capable of. Ethan turned to her, his heart breaking at the sight of her fear. She wasn't just scared of the sisters. She was scared for him. But could he trust her? Could he trust any of them? The youngest sister, who had been silent all this time, stepped forward, her expression softer, almost pained. You don't have to make a choice right now, but when you do, you'll be one of us, whether you want it or not. Ethan's mind was racing, the weight of their words pressing down on him like a vice. There was no turning back. Whatever decision he made here would define the rest of his life. But he couldn't ignore the feeling deep inside him, the gut-wrenching knowledge that if he joined them, he would lose everything that made him human. And if he refused, they would destroy him. The silver-haired sister's eyes darkened, her smile turning cold. You've had enough time to think. The choice is yours. Ethan's mind was a whirlwind, but as he looked around the room, at Lyra, at the sisters, he knew one thing for certain. The choice wouldn't just decide his fate. It would decide the fate of everyone he cared about. The room felt colder now, a silent pressure hanging in the air. Ethan stood there, his heart racing as the sisters waited for him to make the final decision. His mind was in turmoil, spinning faster than he could follow. Every thought, every instinct screamed at him to run, to escape the trap he had fallen into. But he knew it was too late. There was no running now. The silver-haired sister's eyes glinted with amusement as she watched him struggle. She knew that he was caught in their web, that he was no longer just a man, but a choice between two fates. A life of unimaginable power or a future of suffering and loss. You've made it this far, she said softly, her voice low and coaxing. Now it's time to make the ultimate choice. You will be either one of us or you'll be left behind and discarded. Ethan's mind flashed with images of his life before all of this, of the simple, quiet moments he'd taken for granted. He thought of his family, his friends, and everything he'd ever known. All of it was slipping away, piece by piece, like sand through his fingers. He turned toward Lyra, who was still lying motionless on the medical table. Her eyes were wide, filled with sorrow and fear. She wasn't just afraid for herself anymore. She was terrified of what Ethan might do. Her voice, weak and trembling, broke through the silence. Please, Ethan. Don't choose them. You don't understand what you're getting into. The youngest sister, the one who had always seemed more conflicted, finally spoke up. Her voice was quiet, but there was something almost desperate in it. You don't have to make this choice. Not now. You still have time. Ethan's heart wavered at the sound of her words, a small flicker of hope stirring inside him. But then the cold, calculating gaze of the silver-haired sister locked onto him, snuffing it out with a single look. No, there's no more time, she said, her voice commanding and final. It's time to choose, Ethan. Choose your place. Choose your future. He could feel the weight of their expectations crushing him. Each one of them was waiting, watching, seeing what he would do. They had made their decision long ago. This wasn't just about Lyra anymore. This was about him, about who he was going to become in the eyes of these alien women. Would he join them, accept their dark gift, and become something greater? Or would he refuse, knowing that the cost would be more than just his life? Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He had fought so hard to maintain his humanity, to hold on to what he had left, but the truth was staring him in the face now. He wasn't just dealing with a few alien invaders. He was up against something far older, far more dangerous. These women weren't conquerors or invaders. They were something else entirely. They were a force, a power that had been watching humanity from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. And now that moment had come. Ethan was the catalyst. He was the key, but there was something else gnawing at him. Something he hadn't been able to fully grasp until now. These women weren't invincible. They weren't gods. They were just like him in a way. They had weaknesses, fears, desires, things they didn't want him to see. As he looked at them, something shifted inside him. He wasn't just a pawn in their game anymore. He was the player. And this game was far from over. Ethan took a deep breath, his decision slowly forming in his mind. He looked up at the sisters, his gaze hardening. "You're wrong," he said, his voice stronger now, more certain. "I'm not part of your game, and I'm not going to let you control me." The silver-haired sister's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a dark smile. "You think you can defy us? You think you can walk away from this unscathed?" Ethan stepped forward, his voice steady and resolute. "I'm not going to join you. I'm not going to become one of you." For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. The room was eerily silent. Even Lyra, lying on the table, seemed to hold her breath. Then, without warning, the youngest sister's expression shifted. She looked away, almost regretfully, but there was something about her that seemed different now. A quiet sadness in her eyes. But it was gone as quickly as it had appeared, replaced by a hardened resolve. The silver-haired sister didn't speak immediately. Her smile faded, and for a moment, Ethan saw something in her eyes, something cold, something ancient. "You've made your choice, human," she said, her voice dripping with venom. "But remember, what you've just decided will haunt you forever. You've chosen your fate, and now you will live with it." Ethan stood tall, his chest swelling with defiance. "Then let it haunt me. I'll fight until my last breath." And just like that, he knew humans had never seen anything like this. Not the kind of battle that was coming. It wouldn't be one with weapons or power. It would be one with courage, with heart, and with the refusal to be controlled. Whatever happened next, Ethan knew one thing: he would never be the same again. But he was finally free.